This is iFanboy Pick of the Week 872, brought to you by iFanboy listeners just like you. Welcome to iFanboy Pick of the Week, episode 872. And hey, look, 2 weeks in a row, joining us in the third chair this week again is Dr. Reinhaupt.
And we'll see if 2 weeks is more than Josh wants or needs by the end of the episode.
I think we had that answer before the show.
Well, the viewers at home.
It was a verbal altercation. It wasn't recorded. Sorry. Every week, one of us picks the book like the best from the stack of comics they read. We call it the Pick of the Week. We'll talk about that book. We'll talk about the other books from the week, the Patron Pick, some listener mail if we have time. And here's your spoiler warning. Exercise some caution because it's a review show. Ryan, you had the Pick of the Week.
Yes, I'm told that I did. And I did indeed select a pick. And that pick was, I wasn't thinking about my patron power at all.
Ryan's going through a little personal turmoil at home. Nothing bad, but it's a long day, and I think you're going to hear it.
People are coughing, people are sick, I'm expected to sign contracts, money is changing hands, there's a lot going on. But it did not prevent the Pick of the Week from being The Ambassadors Issue 1 by Mark Miller, Frank Quitely, with Clem Robbins on letters. Frank Quitely did both the art and the colors, and I assume both of you read this because it's a Mark Miller #1, or is that not still a thing we get at least a little excited for?
I don't read them on purpose, but I don't usually read Mark Miller #1s. However, as my good friend Connor said to me, it's not often you get a Frank Quitely book, and that didn't require a lot of convincing.
Yeah, and I felt like that was the part of this book that struck me first and foremost, was this is good Quitely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting though. It's slightly different quietly because he's also coloring it and he's putting texture into the colors, which is something I don't normally enjoy. But it's also, to be fair, he's only doing this issue, not surprisingly.
Oh,
but yeah, it's a different artist for every issue of the series.
Well, he started this in 2015,
right? The thing about Miller, and I think this book exemplifies it, is that he still has a million ideas. They're often fun, but I think he's trending back to the more hyper-violent and edgy Miller. Like he sort of goes with the tides of the consensus of the day. And remember, in the beginning, we were doing a Fanboy. It was like Wanted era. He was and Kick-Ass. It was very like nihilistic and violent. And
I mean, he's literally brought back Nemesis, which I
right.
feel like
And then there was like a really great period in the middle where he sort of switched gears, and it was like Starlight and Huck,
doing
some
different
really
genres.
like sort of heartfelt, happy adventure, superhero, sci-fi tales, and I think he's trending back towards where he was previously. And it's not my favorite. So that's probably why I don't read as much anymore these days as I usually do.
I wouldn't say it's my favorite either, but this team in particular, I mean, I first was exposed to this team when they were doing Authority, at taking over from Warren Ellis and Brian Hitch. So, I have some nostalgia for this team working together.
God, I hated those books.
I actually thought that was a step down from the Ellis and Hitch era. And I would stand by that even today, but that was my first exposure to them. But then I discovered things like We Three and All-Star Superman, and really felt, and I know those are two Grant Morrison books, but I fell in love with Quitely's art, I think a little later than his Authority run. And this book, I thought, I think what you said, Connor, is correct. And I think it sort of feels like the recombination of a couple different ideas that Mark Miller has explored in previous books. And the one that I felt that was, I think he's probably riffed on previous iterations of the idea before, but it felt somewhat fresh in this particular issue, was the using a fake Superman trying to make like films and movies to scare the Russians, and clearly hinting at like George Reeves' assassination was a government operation. And then the American government assuming that the person to figure out how to give superpowers to people would be American, and that they could co-opt it. And it turns out it's this Korean woman who was in prison, but she figures out how to sort of give herself powers. And the plot of the book is everyone wants to figure out how to give people superpowers so they can use them for the military. And she says, no, I'm just going to give superpowers to good people. And there's only a couple of them that are going to get it. And so I guess each issue is going to be sort of the audition of people trying to get access to these powers that she's making available. And then it ends with badass in the bar being hyper violent, making dudes poop themselves before he kills them, and then he says, "Pay my bill," and leaves. And that, to me, it almost kind of ruined it for me, because I'm like, oh, I don't know that I needed that aspect of it, but okay.
Yeah, so
you made a pick of the week, so you.
So it's for quietly. The step back, I think, is the general premise is there supposedly are no superior powers. Governments have been trying to create them, and like Ryan said, they've been creating propaganda to make their enemies think they have them, like the fake Superman videos. And then this woman in Korea succeeds in doing it. She's not a government agent. She's just a private, super rich, super smart citizen who's also happens to be in jail for fraud. And then they basically say at the book, it's Willy Wonka with superpowers. It's like there's going to be 6 people who get the golden ticket to get superpowers. But then it ends with this dude in the bar who clearly has superpowers. So that was a little confusing, but clearly will be an important plot point. But yeah, that was my least favorite. It was fine, like beautiful. And I really like looking at how Quietly's art has evolved. And it's fun to look at what he does. But, story-wise, I thought it was okay.
I think my thought was starting it, just like beginning. And now that I just looked at a page, and I know that I noticed that Quietly did the colors too, and it looks a little like early color. Like it's fuzzy in places when there's skin. It doesn't look right. When he doesn't do it flat. When he does it flat, it looks awesome. Anyway, and his color palette's great. Anyway, the first sequence, the first segment with Super Smart Monkey, and he breaks into I was 100% into that.
Yeah,
and then that page, like the page turn where he calmly puts his hand up, and then you go to there's a full page of him holding that truck up in the air, with his powers, and the spotlight is down. That is what would you give to have that page on your wall? Just right. Like it is a beautiful image. And I was like, hell yes, here we go. And then the other bit, it feels like, now I would like to be really pithy and say, yeah, he's just doing blank and name that comic. I can't quite do that. But it feels very familiar.
Yeah, I felt that too.
The second half of the story feels, I can't put my finger on it because I think it's a lot of different things, but it feels like stuff I've read that I didn't love. So the woman, the with the powers who are giving them out, like she reminds me of remember the Asian lady in the Watchmen TV shows who like not shows, the show. I forget her name.
The Vietnamese woman, Ozymandias' daughter.
Yes, and she shows up and she runs the big company, and she buys the baby, I think. She reminded me of that. That's instantly who I pictured, because she had some singular name or something like that.
Lady True.
Yeah, there you go, Lady True. It reminded me of that. It was I heard and pictured that woman in the part. The guy in the bar, I was like, that's just Cole Cash with superpowers, or Jesse Custer or whatever. And part of me has to be like, what are you doing superheroes again for, Mark Miller?
I had that feeling a little bit too, yeah.
Yeah, but I also think that that's an unrealistic request. He does superheroes because he does superheroes. That's his thing. And fair enough. I can't, the Leopard's got spots. He's got, he's got superheroes. That's what he loves. That's what he does. Fine. But, on any given day, if we're talking about if a comic book is well done and you can see all the talent right there, I can't complain about it. It's so much talent in front of you sort of doing a thing, I'm not going to not read it. I'm not.
It's interesting because I am curious to see what the next issue brings. Because this is very much a prologue. It's a lot of it is just this woman giving a speech at like Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
And so the story hasn't really even started, which is a problem these days. And when you're talking about 5-issue miniseries,
everybody's going to an island, which reminds me of a Mark Russell book of some kind, and somebody's going to make a decision, and it's.
I'm just saying, I'm curious to see what happens next. What is the actual, when someone like this says, I'm going to give 6 random people powers in the world. What's the implication of that? I'm curious to see what happens next in there. But
I wish you hadn't told me about the change in the artist. I mean, I'm glad I know because I won't be disappointed when issue 2 comes out.
I'll tell you what, it's good to know, but Mark Millar has exemplary taste in artists. So whoever comes on isn't gonna suck. It's not gonna be Frank Quitely, but you're not gonna be like, oh, this is terrible. He's Mark Millar. He's gonna get the best guys. If you look at all those books he did for a while, every one of them. I think after Quitely was off Jupiter's whatever it was, and they brought on Wilfredo Torres. And it was gorgeous. Not the same, but
do you want to know who the artists are?
It said it on the back. I don't remember.
Number 2 is Carl Kerschel. Number 3 is Travis Charest. I haven't seen him do interiors in probably 20 years. Number 4 is Olivier Coipel. Number 5 is Matteo Buffini. And number 6 is Matteo Scalera. So it's a good lineup.
That's a murderer's row.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So if anything, this series will be worth reading. I haven't seen Travis Charest interiors maybe more than 20 years. So, I'm in to see. I'm curious to see how they're going to do this. What is it going to be? How they're going to,
The last thing he did was an issue of what is the book that Richard Starkings did with the elephants?
It was called Elephant Men.
Elephant Men. I think that's the last thing I saw him do. And then another one never came out.
So
I might be wrong, but that's my instinct.
I mean, Miller's an idea factory, right? He even if they're not all over super original, he puts them together in interesting ways. Usually, the last book I read of his was that old man James Bond spy book, which I thought was too short. I think it was only 3 or 4. It was only 4 issues, and it needed to feel like it needed to be 6.
The old man James Bond, where he kills Parliament and all the
And I think that was Matteo Scalera too, wasn't it?
That was fun.
It was. He can't be stopped.
Always interesting ideas, always great artists. Doesn't always work, and I'm weary of his turn back to nihilism, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. He's got a book with Pepe Larraz coming out. Like he always gets.
I mean, it's a little interesting that like we're talking about this book in very nihilistic terms, where the fundamental premise is a woman who wants to give superpowers to good people.
Yeah, maybe it won't be. I'm just saying in general, his turn in general.
No, I hear you. I'm only putting this together as we talk about it, and that's interesting to me. So,
I mean, I'm sure it's not going to go well. It's not going to go well for that.
Hip Flask.
Hip Flask. It wasn't called
Elephant Man. Is that a patron power?
No, it wasn't called Elephant Man. It was called Hip Flask. Elephant Men were a part of it, but then he released other series that had that title. But Hip Flask is the parent series.
Okay, all I remember is the Richard Starking series, Elephant Man. I don't think I ever read anything in the Hip Flask.
Oh, you know what? I'm actually thinking of Ladrone. Remember Ladrone?
Yeah. No, Travis Charest hasn't done interiors in like a generation.
Yeah. No, well, it's
I'm sure somewhere, maybe some French comics, but he's mostly been living off of
Wait, is he French?
Elephant Man had sort of a French sensibility.
Yeah, oh yeah, totally did.
I think he's been living off commissions.
Actually French? I would think he's American, but
he's Canadian.
This has been the least effusive
Quebecois, at least.
Yeah, this has been the least effusive pick of the week discussion we've ever had.
I
think we turned you around. Would you like to make another pick?
No, I wouldn't. I felt like I felt like I picked the best. We say it's the book I enjoyed the most this week.
Yeah.
And
nothing wrong with it.
It wasn't a bad week of comics. I think we were all sort of dancing between the raindrops to get our comics read, which I'm not complaining about. I know Josh worries that I'm like pulling the yoke of comics through the fields, but I still enjoyed my comics, and this was the one that when I reflected on it for the amount of time that I had to reflect on it, it was the one I enjoyed the most.
Yeah, nothing wrong.
It's a fine choice.
Dark Knights of Steel number 10 is we're heading towards the final issue, the final story of this fantasy world, in which we find out that we saw before, but the white Martians are behind everything. We get sort of the backstory and the story of John Jones's life on Mars in this world. I just wish this was like an ongoing series. I know that the economics of these things probably don't allow for it, but I feel like it's such a waste of all these interesting versions of the characters and this world he's created to just do 12. I feel like this would have been
it doesn't mean that we won't see other.
No, but it's just
this all day, anytime.
It would have been fun to be like really flesh this world out and tell like a saga here, but I don't know how popular this is or isn't.
I will say this is a better property than the Marvel one he did. Like it felt like it had more legs.
Dark Ages or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's like they came to him and be like, do you want to do old timey story with these characters? Like, sure thing, mate. Let's do it.
Wait, are you talking about the one Tom Taylor did that was Dark Age, or are you talking about like a 1619?
Whatever, like with
Dark
the characters.
Was the future, it was the post-apocalyptic.
Dark Age was technically post-apocalyptic,
right? But it still felt like they were going back to the Stone Age, I guess.
That's because there was no technology, right. But yeah,
it's fine.
The art still tends to be terrific for this. I love the layouts are fun. It's Yasmin Pustri for the most part on this series for the whole way through. There's a lot of interesting dynamics here between the power. We end up with 4 queens running things because all the kings have been assassinated. That was fun. I just really like this world, these characters in it, and it's the bummer it's going to be ending soon because we only have 2 more issues left.
How do you feel about the White Martian turn? I mean, this is more or less the same bit that it's the John Jones's origin story, the same twist that you had in Grant Morrison's thing. I think I felt a little like, I was kind of hoping it would be something different because so much of these other things are turns of what you didn't expect. That Alfred is a Martian, that is all a little mixed up, and then this felt a little, straight down the line.
That was 25 years ago when that happened.
I know. I just mean like it's a story that
Ryan wasn't even born yet.
Most of the stuff here isn't parallel to DC. That's one of the things I really liked about it. But then this part was, and I was kind of like, that's not.
I mean, did John replace an Alfred who died, or is the entire concept of Alfred a John Jones?
I think it's the second one. I feel it's the second one.
I believe the latter.
I think you're right, but it does open up that possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it's not the same. So who is Alfred? Just some guy who takes care of Bruce,
I can't believe you just said that.
I know.
In this story, he's not
right.
It's not like he's been serving. Like he's just like the guy who takes care of Bruce.
He has a bit. He does have a bit.
He said I couldn't love him more if he were my own son.
Exactly.
Yes. Because he takes care of him. I'm just saying he's not like this. This isn't the DC universe where the family's been serving the Waynes for generations. This is just he's the guy at the kingdom who takes care of the kid, and he loves him.
Yeah.
I don't know if I fully agree with that interpretation.
And Bruce was, it doesn't matter. We don't need to argue. We both made our points. It's not going to change anything. And Bruce was raised by the L's. There was just all these slight differences from what we are normally used to seeing. It's one of the things I really liked about this series. It's not a complaint really about the White Martians, but that stuff was pretty much parallel to the DC version of events. And so I found it a little less interesting.
I did find it interesting how they basically use their shapeshifting powers to sow discord amongst all the kingdoms and put them all at war. Like the way they use their powers politically was interesting.
It was like this. It was Skrulls.
It's not clear if the Martian civilization was also in their quote unquote Middle Ages or Dark Ages. So it's like how. I mean, I know John Jones is a very powerful being and could probably fly from Mars to Earth under his own power, but like it wasn't clear how did he actually get from planets. Do they have the technology to do that, or is he just able to fly?
Yeah, you're right. He was like, so I came to Earth, and I was like, well, all right. You know what? I don't need an explanation. I mean, that really is that's a Batmobile catching a flat tire thing. Like, don't worry about
wave.
It. Yep,
he flew.
It would have wasted our time. And if I'm the writer, that's not
important.
It is totally unimportant to the narrative, unless it turns out to be later, and then they'll get to it.
I mean, there are Green Lantern rings involved, so. We do know that those enable that sort of transport.
Like, see, that's another thing. Like the dude at the end who I had a Green Lantern thing, and then they call him Lex. I was like, oh,
Joker.
That's Luthor. Luthor. Is this Joker?
Luthor. Wasn't it combined?
With a Green Lantern ring? That's what I'm talking about. There's no parallel to that. That's just mashing things up, and I think that's really fun.
So what you're saying is you hated it.
I liked it. I enjoy this series.
The vernacular of the internet, it means you hated it.
Exactly. This series is every time there's a new issue of it, I have a little like delighted surprise. I'm like, oh, right, this. I kind of don't think about it until it comes out, and I know it's monthly, so I'm not getting hit over the head with it, and it's enjoyable, and it's kind of cool to see the construction of it.
I know that the double shipping has broken all of our brains, but I feel like there was a slight delay, but maybe that's just because it came out 4 weeks ago. But I feel like it was.
I was actually going to ask at the beginning of this discussion: is this a monthly book? Because I feel like I have a hard time remembering issue on a month.
It's definitely monthly. It's definitely monthly, but I don't know if there was like a longer delay because I couldn't remember the last time an issue had come out. I guess I could look it up, but what's the fun in that?
No fun whatsoever.
No.
I don't know about Action Comics. I don't know.
I feel like I'm enjoying it.
I'm bummed. I don't really enjoy it. I enjoy Superman. I don't know. There's things about it I like. For sure. But
I had a couple issues to catch up on this week on Action Comics, and I've listened to the show enough to hear your criticisms about like the large family. There's too many people with S's on their chests, and I know I said chesses, not chess. That was intentional. But
don't explain the joke.
Well, here we are.
Hold on, I'm sorry. Dark Knights of Steel #9 came out in January, so there was a delay.
Okay.
So it was a month and a half delay. Came out the first week of January.
I feel like I'm enjoying the ensemble cast of this book, and I'm enjoying the Dan Jurgens Lee Weeks backup, and I have zero opinions whatsoever on the other backup, but I'm actually kind of digging this series, I think, more than Connor is at this point.
Yeah, that's probably not too hard. I think
no, I don't hate it. There's things about it I don't like. Things about it.
I like more about it than I don't. I'm really interested. I kind of forget about the family because the only part I'm really keying into is this Metallo storyline and Lex Luthor, and like the other people are there. And in this one, it kind of worked to have John Henry in jeopardy from it. I thought that worked really well, and everybody else shows up, and I just thought, oh, that's what would have happened when we get back to the apartment and we see everybody there and the Super Twins or whatever. But the actual it's actually pretty. You know, take all that out, it's a pretty good Metallo story.
Yeah, and I like the sort of body horror of Metallo in this particular story, and I know that's been done before, but. You know, the way he's modifying other humans, it looks really good. I think the way it's being written, they're really finding interesting ways to, like, you know, the fact that Metallo last issue said, well, if Superman has a family, I need one too. And so he starts creating new Metallo people, and that's creepy and it's wrong and it's messed up. And then
but there's the other thing going on where he starts talking to his sister and like he's losing it. And I think that for whatever reason, if you remember how the story started out, I don't remember Metallo's name.
Sean Corbin.
John Corbin, that's right. He was in Northern Exposure, right? No, that was Jim.
Yeah.
Anyway,
exactly. He married Bo Derek.
You know, he looked human. Like everything was going okay for him, and then he ran into Lex, and every issue it's going worse and worse and worse. And in this one, like he's clearly, I can't tell if he's hallucinating or somebody's controlling. That's Lex controlling the hologram of his sister, whatever. But there is a page turn here, and it is when you talk about body horror, page 16. And they say, this is where your sister is. And she's like in some torture chamber. She's being held upside down. Yeah. There's a million needles going through. That is one hell of a page right there. That is an excellent image and page turn.
Yeah, I'm on the fence about Rafa Sandoval because I think he's very good. I don't like his Superman model. I don't like the face. But there's really good stuff in here. So
right.
It's almost got like a Mark Buckingham vibe to it, which is not an artist I ever would have thought to pair with Superman, but like the way he does his faces, I see a lot of Bucky in there. And one thing I do like about having
I see that.
One thing I do like about having the ensemble cast is, you know, Metallo, especially if you have multiple Metallos running around, like a truly formidable foe against Kryptonians because he's powered by kryptonite. So he's able to just blast Kryptonians with kryptonite. So it makes it I think it makes it a little more interesting that now you've got all these people who are part of Superman's family in legitimate peril, but because there's so many of them, Clark can be like, okay, you know, Connor, you fly Kara to the hospital, Kong, you fly this guy to Star Labs, and then when he gets home to the apartment, he's able to say like, hey, John, you stay home with the twins so I can go do Superman stuff. So like, he's able to divide and conquer a little bit, because I feel like otherwise we would have a story where Superman's trying to do it all, and the story would be more about how stretched thin he is, but he's not stretched thin in this because he's got all this support. And the story's not, it's about them a little bit, but not so much that I'm annoyed by it. And I don't know, that aspect of it for me, maybe I think I just need some help, guys.
One thing I thought was actually a really nice moment in this one, and I don't know if you want to have the Superman as dad thing, but it's if you're telling a story about him having a son, I think it's really valid, is that like Superboy or whatever, John, is actually like, hey dad, you want to go have a catch? And he's like, sure, we can bring the new kids. Oh, and I was like, oh, yeah. That's so terrible.
But I actually was like, oh fuck, because I was like, now we're gonna do super kid jealousy, and I was like, but then they nipped it in the bud really quickly, so that I liked that quite a bit.
But I mean, if you're gonna do that story, like you think about it, like any kid wants his dad, you know, and the story thus far has been that, of course, in addition to being Superman, who is amazing, Superman has also been a really great dad, and here you see like a little crack in that, and I thought that was good. Like if you're gonna do the story with a son, you know, Superman would probably be a somewhat absent father. Like it's no way he wouldn't. He cares too much about everybody.
Yeah, and his job too. I didn't even know that was Jonathan at first, because in some books he has super Gen Z hair and super Gen Z clothes, and then this one he's wearing like a terrible sweater and looks like Dick Grayson.
That is a knock on Rafa Sandoval. It's very difficult to tell the different folks apart, and it's funny because in the first story he looks one way, and then in the last story, which I do not want to read, but I do like the art. Just from an aesthetic standpoint, he looks like a completely different person. He's got that weird, dangly, curly, wet hair.
Yeah. Which story? His own book?
The Lee Weeks
one? No, the third story.
Oh, the third story.
You've been reading that? You've been keeping up with the Power Girl?
No. It's just that I finished the Lee Weeks story and I was on a high, and I was like, oh, this looks good, and John's in it. So didn't realize that it was the superhero psychology session story, and I was like, oh wait, I'm out.
He just looks totally different in every. Like, make up your mind what kind of hair he has, but
done.
I don't know. There's a lot going. The best part is the Metallo Lex Luthor Superman thing. I like the scene of Lex and Superman in the prison where Superman is convinced Lex is running Metallo like a agent, and Lex seems to be not, and is slightly concerned, but won't show it. But we can see it. Like that was all very good. And again, Philip Kennedy Johnson writes terrific Superman stuff. It's just I think there's just so much bursting at the seams in a 20-page book. There's so many characters have to be serviced.
Absolutely.
Well, so here's my question, Connor. When you're in charge at DC, do you go back to 22? Do you give them those 2 extra pages?
Well, I mean, I don't think that's really. I don't think that's a editor in chief. That's not an editor in chief decision. That's a business.
It's also
decision.
It's not a content decision.
Yeah,
it's an economic decision. Connor,
but
what do you
heads
think?
will roll though when I'm in charge.
Sure. Oh yeah. I just like
so many heads. Blood in the streets.
The Axeman cometh.
Yeah.
There's a bit here though. So we just talked about when he shows up at Luthor's, and we are going to move on. But this is a good old comic book question. He goes through the wall,
right?
So is he doing the Flash thing there? Does he have the ability to phase? I was not aware that he
shouldn't have that, because not even all the Flashes can do that.
I agree with Connor.
And does the wall still blow up when they do it, or is that a thing of the past?
Depends on the Flash.
Yeah, Barry was able to get through walls without blowing them up. Wally always struggled with that because you destabilize the molecules when you phase through it, and that was something Wally always had a hard time with. And
how did he do that?
Well, I immediately saw it. I was like, "Whoa!"
I caught it too, but this isn't. I mean, that's Batman filling the tires.
You can't give him all the powers like that. He shouldn't be able to do that.
Well, yeah, no, exactly. I was like, no. Superman's power set is very defined, and every time it's fun when they modify Flash's powers. It's fun when the artist thinks of some other weird faux science shit that he can do because he's really fast. It doesn't work that way for Superman. Every time they're like, no, Superman can explode with the sun. It's terrible. But like the Flash, you could be like, yeah, he figured out how to do it so fast that he can turn himself blue. Awesome, go with it.
It's also, but Lex is in a cell with like an actual like bar cage wall.
They've got like every other supervillain story. They get put in a prison that is like, is impregnable. He's in some 1940s shit.
So I guess my question is it possible that Superman's vibrating is him like, can he bend the bars and put them back in place? I mean, the vroom vibrating sound effect doesn't quite jive with that, but I'm just thinking out loud of how to make it make sense.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I noticed it too.
I feel like I always really want to like the Doom Patrol. And I always have a hard time with it. So this is the newest Dawn of DC book. Unstoppable Doom Patrol by Dennis Culver, Chris Burnham, Brian Reber, Pat Brousseau. And first of all, much like Quietly, Chris Burnham draws like no one else draws in comics. He has such a unique style all his own.
Yeah.
There's a couple of shots here. Like there's one where I can't find it, but it was where like reverse, like with you saw the back of some guy's teeth. Like he just does such weird, interesting stuff. And I'm just here it is. It's page 8 on your digital reader. God, I just love looking at his stuff. Yeah. I love looking at stuff. I don't know why. I like the Doom Patrol when they show up in stories. I don't know if I like them as protagonists. I didn't get into the TV show at all. Like I don't know. What did you guys think of this book?
I've never read it. I mean, that's not true. I've never liked it when I've read it. I did not read this issue because again, like you said, you want to like it, never have. It doesn't.
Didn't you read the Grant Morrison books?
Not much of it. I think maybe I read that first trade, but it was a struggle even then.
Interesting. Ryan, did you read this?
I did. Yes.
What did you think of it? I didn't dislike this. I thought this was fun. I just have a hard time getting with them. That's all.
I didn't dislike this either. I thought the commentary they were making on like Batman's relationship with the metahuman community and how on the Justice League, really, it's only Flash that has the metagene, which I also feel like isn't Flash connected to the Speed Force? I don't think Flash needs a metagene.
That actually blew my mind. They were like, there's one superhero on the Justice League. And I was like, wait, what? And there was like, you're all aliens or people with, technology or
right. Hal has a ring, or Kyle or whoever your GL on the league is, and Aquaman's a hybrid, and Wonder Woman's
just the god. Like,
are we saying that Wonder Woman is not human? That's like, is that a correct statement?
She's made of clay. Didn't you just
she's what made of clay, Josh?
Yeah, that's true. Fair enough.
There's no metahumans they were like only Flash is a metahuman, and I was like, oh,
because I feel like the DC concept of the metahuman predates the establishment of the core Justice League team.
Predates so it would be
it. Postdates.
Okay.
I apologize. Postdates it. So you would have to retcon the core 7 team. You have to make some of the core team metahumans.
Listen, here's the deal. We all know this is true. Metahuman is analogous to midichlorian.
No, it's analogous to mutants.
I don't need it. It doesn't I don't need them to have a gene that gives them superpowers. I think it takes away from the fun of superheroes and the chemicals splashing on Barry Allen with the lightning bolt. I don't need it to have activated a gene within him. I don't need, that stuff.
That's what's really fun about Marvel is that they created a subset of that. So if you do like that, that's what mutants are. That's a different. I like that. I think it works. But I think you make a very good point. Over in DC, you don't have to do that. So to me, the phrase metahuman is just human with extra powers, and that's enough. But you're absolutely right. This should not be.
They are like mutants, kind of. They're all weird. And
I mean, the original Doom Patrol book is a team of freaks and weirdos led by a guy in a wheelchair that predates the publication of X-Men 1. So, make of that what you will.
But they weren't talking about metahuman genes back then.
No, Francis and Crick had barely published their paper 10 years prior in 1953 about the double helix structure of the human genome.
Yeah. Interesting to point out in this book, when Batman shows up, it's with Tim and not with Damian.
How'd that make you feel?
It made me feel great.
I wanted to ask, my main question for you reading this book was how did you feel about this Batman representation?
I thought it was fine. It's very much in line of kind of like a Garth Ennis book, which is the sort of the vibe of this anyway. I have no problem with, the weird side characters taking the piss out of the main heroes, because that's kind of what they do. So that's fine.
It's been a while since we've seen Monsieur Mala and the Brain, and I remember them. I think Judd Winnick did something with them in some book that was drawn by Tom Rainey, and I can't remember what it was now. To save my life.
Look at you.
Well, I don't remember the book, so what good is this to anyone? Write in, contact at iFanboy.com.
Well, the Brain is toast. So
the Brain is toast, but that made me a little sad because I felt like Judd Winnick established that they are not just partners in crime, but they're actually a couple. They're in a romantic relationship, and so
they had a falling out.
Sure, they sure did.
And then the brains fell out. I don't know. I mean, look, I didn't dislike this. I enjoyed reading it. Dennis Culver can write solid stuff. Chris Burnham is terrific. I guess that Die book is over.
The Outsiders. It was their Outsiders series.
But I just have trouble connecting to the Doom Patrol. It doesn't mean I'm not going to read it. I'm going to check out at least another issue of it to see really what we're doing.
I like
here,
that one dude's name is Cliff. He's got a regular guy name.
I mean, he's Robot Man, but nobody calls him that.
That's Oscar winner Brendan Fraser you're talking about, sir.
Does he play Cliff in one of the things?
in the TV show?
In the show, yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
he plays the voice he's the voice of Cliff.
Oh, I was like, I believe his quote just went up for TV.
If you listen to his apparently his catchphrase on the show is "What the fuck," and he was recently on WTF with Mark Maron, so that was, hey, what fun.
You know what the fuck is not a good catchphrase.
No, it's not.
I didn't write it.
This included the Doom Patrol plus Peacemaker, so it was very much a DC TV show book.
I see.
But
I'm happy for
the Chris Burnham work alone, it was worth looking at.
I like that Doom Patrol is a thing that some people like a lot. And it doesn't have to be for me. I like that they do. And I hope they're having their day with the TV show and that comic done by great creators. And, it's fine. I don't have to like it.
And I like that when they do these soft reboot or resettings of things that they include books like this. Because we were just talking about this. Actually, this will be the second time we mentioned this. But on the Patron Hangout, Josh, before you joined, when it was just Ryan and I, we were talking about the lack of DC mid-list. And how one of the reasons I think, because we talked on the previous show about how I'm reading like 5 fewer books a week than I used to. I think one of the reasons is because there isn't very much from the DC mid-list. There's no Green Arrow book. There's no Green Lantern book. There's no John Jones or Hawkman book. There's no Doom Patrol.
There's 7 Batman books.
Right. And so
4 Batman books and 3 other things.
I'm happy that they're adding back books like this because the comics world and DC in particular is more rich and interesting when they're not just Superman and Batman comics.
God, it hadn't really occurred to me. Is there a Green Lantern book right now?
No,
there's no DC mid list. They're a lot of them are coming back with this Dawn of DC, but for the last year or so, there's been hardly anything other than Flash, Wonder Woman, then a bunch of Batman and Superman books.
That
not Grant Morrison. Grant Morrison, was that the last Green Lantern book?
I don't think that was in continuity though. There was Green Lanterns by Sam Humphries writing that?
No. The last Green Lantern book was
the lady.
No. The last Green Lantern book was about John Stewart. We read a couple issues of it and it wasn't very good, and we stopped reading it. That was post Grant Morrison and way post Green Lanterns. Green Lanterns was like 10 years ago.
I'm not talking about. I'm talking about the Simone Baz and. No, I'm talking. I know the one you're talking about, Josh. You're talking about the out of continuity with
right. I'm talking about the one you mentioned, Ryan, the Green Lanterns book with Simon and Jessica, and that was like 10 years ago.
No, it was not 10 years ago, but
yes, it was. It
was. I think the other side of that John Stewart book, I think it happened in the same book. I think there was 2 storylines, and one was the lady with the glasses, and then the little girl with the fists.
Right.
So those were in the same book. That's why I said the lady.
Oh, wait, you mean the young Brazilian girl who was like the...
I liked her. Yeah. Whatever. And then the whole of like they blew up Oa or something like that.
Yeah, we stopped reading it. It was not good. And I guess everybody else did too because it got canceled.
I think I read it for a while.
No. We both stopped pretty quickly.
Fair enough.
Anyway, that's why I'm happy books like this exist. That's a long way of saying that. Yeah.
So I was pretty excited to see Dungeons and Dragons Saturday Morning Adventures #1 from the good folks at IDW. Listeners of the show may remember that there was a Saturday Morning Adventures version of G.I. Joe that they did, which my life partner here, Connor, and I loved.
Almost pick of the week several times.
Yeah. I mean, but either way, it was every time an issue came out, it was a joy. It was too short. And it's really interesting to me that the next thing they chose to do, and I didn't know they were going to do more of these, was the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon because it was fairly short-lived, and I remember loving it. However, I didn't remember a single goddamn thing about it.
I'm sure it has to do with licensing, like what they had licensed to do, but also...
Yeah. Well, this is the movie, it's the timing.
Yeah. Strangely enough, again, on the last Patron Hangout, we ended up talking about 80s cartoons for the most part. And this one came up pretty heavily, and then suddenly, a week later, the book comes out, or 2 weeks later, the book comes out. It was very strange timing.
It was great, and as I went through it, like it's actually really well constructed. I gotta say, in the beginning, there was a really good sort of roll call, and that's all coming back to me a little bit, like stuff I haven't thought about in nearly 40 years, probably. And we meet, and then the dungeon master shows up, and I was like, right, it was that little Gwildor looking thing. This dungeon, there's your Yoda or whatever. And it was the first time I'd heard the term dungeon master. And then they showed the bad guys, and there was the there was the little 9-year-old who's a barbarian. That's his power. Each of these kids got a different power. I mean, like sort of technically introducing you to a bunch of concepts. It was really well done. This kid's this age. Here's the deal. There was a little joke about it. The style, unlike the G.I. Joe book, was more stylized. It was the artist who did this, which is George Kembadais. And it was more like that. It was his style, not the sort of animated style, which was, it would have been cool if it was the anime style, but it worked. It's actually pretty good art for that. And like every time you turn the page and you'd see, oh, there's the villain, Venger. And Venger had like one big wing and he's missing a horn off his face. It was something about 80s villains had they all kind of looked like they were drawn by Jack Kirby and Alex Toth had been melded together.
They might have been. That's what they did.
And there's a great double page sequence of the characters running through different panels into different places. As they go through, I think they're going through dimensions or something like that. Yeah, they're hopping dimensions, and it was great. It was really fun. I had a history with it. I wouldn't say if you never knew what this was that you'd be like, this is great. But as a sort of like throwbacky thing, it was really fun. David Booker and Sam Maggs on this.
I never knew what this was, and I read it when I saw you put it on the breakdown. Nobody rolled any dice at any point.
Nope.
The show wasn't that. A bunch of kids get transported to the. It's I Hate Fairyland, but and they all get
dice, right? Was that that Kieran Gillen book?
That's exactly what it was.
But how do you know if you hit the orc with the arrow?
Because you got to do it.
Because you just do it. Well, the thing is that's a metaphor of the rolling. We're doing that all the time, and so they're just doing it, and chance itself is the dice.
But I mean, the Dungeon Master's supposed to be a buddy of yours that you convinced to do it, not some little short dude.
I feel like you're having trouble with the concept.
I am a little bit. I never watched the show, so I'm struggling. I'm doing my best.
Who put a Greg Land book in here?
Put book on script. I only put this on there to say one thing about it, and it's that.
Which is what? What's the book?
Oh, the book. Thank you, Connor. The book is Avengers Beyond, story by Derek Landry, art by Greg Land. This is I didn't read whatever Avengers book led into this event. I just saw that it was Avengers #1, so I snagged it. And the only thing I really want to say about this book is there's kind of an interesting conceit where it's the Beyonder, so he's essentially a godlike being that exists outside time and space relative to the universe that the Avengers themselves exist in. And so it's his caption boxes throughout the first part of the issue. And the Avengers have been having these instances where they lose their memory of how they ended up in specific places or events. So they have a suspicion that something is influencing them from outside the universe. And so what we find out, and what I thought was the one really cool concept that I hadn't really seen executed in this exact way before, is Tony Stark and Black Panther, without talking about it out loud to each other, both managed to sort of infer that something is influencing the Avengers team from outside reality. And so they each start building one half of a machine to capture whatever that being is. And then they teleport each half of their machines into the same room in the hopes that they just magically map up. Because if they talk about it out loud, the being that's observing them will see it and will interfere and prevent them and erase their memories and prevent them from building the machine. So as long as they don't say anything to each other, this being, which we learn as the Beyonder, can't mess them up. And so they essentially science their way by working in parallel with each other, and it works, and they're able to capture the Beyonder. And once he's pulled into the 616 reality, all of his caption boxes become his word balloons. And I was like, that's actually kind of a cool sci-fi concept and comic book, and using the comic book form to sort of make it feel real in the moment to these characters. Yeah,
difference between interdimensional states of being.
Yeah, so I dug that. I thought that was cool. I don't think I'll stick with the series beyond that. The story itself was not. I didn't know how these events were set in motion. I didn't recognize the characters that were introduced, and I don't hate Greg Land's art, but in particular, little things like the way he draws Blade's sunglasses just looked awful. Did not look good.
He was awesome on Darth Vader. It's perfect for it. I don't know why. I think he did an Aliens book too. That was pretty good. but people.
He's a pariah. He chases other artists' work. Star Wars Corner time, and I'm just going to correct the title of the book because it's not totally right. Star Wars Corner, Star Wars Return of the Jedi, Jabba's Palace #1, which is a book about Jabba the Hutt.
This is a Tales from Jabba's Palace story.
Yes.
And I was like, I am going to check it out. And Connor, here is the and you can't. I know you like Tales from Jabba's Palace, so you can't.
Is Muftak in it?
No.
Is
nor is
Laxivrak
Cabe
in it?
So
No?
okay. Do you know when C-3PO and R2-D2 are introduced to EV-99 in Jabba's Palace? You are a protocol droid, are you not?
Yeah.
And such. And then in the and they said, let's hope you do better than Jabba's last interpreter droid. And then you see in the corner the droid is being pulled apart and he's going, no.
Yep.
It's that droid story.
I think that's all that needs to be said about the issue. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
is
actually,
it multiple stories? Just the one story.
Just that
story.
And it was just that story. And to be honest, that I loved it right up until then, and after that, it wasn't really all that remarkable. I didn't really like the story. I didn't really like the characterization of the droid. But
no Muftak and Cabe, no Laxivrak, nobody.
Which one's Muftak? Is it the little one or is that Cabe?
Muftak's the big one.
Okay, so the
big
Cabe is
silvery furry.
Now was Cabe getting his own drink or was he getting it from Muftak?
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, they're buddies.
It was a big drink for a little guy.
Well, that's the benefit of being a little guy.
I thought it was fine. It was a little like the behavior of the droid didn't really seem to match what I think of as a droid, or even what we saw in the movie. It didn't seem to. But I don't know how you could have done a story like that.
What lengths will you go to get your restraining bolt removed?
Mm-hmm. And respect. I did not enjoy it. It wasn't great, but I don't regret reading it. I would do it again. If they do another, if they do another one of these, if they pick some random character out and it's just a short one-issue story.
So this was a one-shot?
I'm on it. Yep.
It fleshed out that part of the world, that part of the universe in a way that
has no effect on anything.
Exactly. It didn't annoy me. It didn't. Well, yeah. We don't have time to talk about the things that annoy me in Star Wars these days. So I'm just going to say I wasn't annoyed by this. It was good.
All right. Those are the books we're going to talk about this week, but at patreon.com/iFanboy, there are books we add to the rundown called the Patron Pick. The patrons vote to add it. And that is how we get here with this week's winner, Clobberin Time, #1 from Marvel Comics, Steve Scroach, Brian Valenza, Joe Sabino. This is a miniseries featuring the adventures of the Thing and the Hulk in Clobberin Adventures, and this definitely would have been my pick of the week had it been my week of comics to choose.
Me too.
This would have been my pick of the week. Terrific.
I mean, I gotta admit, I'll admit something at the start of this, just so it's out of the way. I enjoyed this as well. I have issues. I have visual issues anytime the Thing's rocks are damaged or not in place.
I don't like that, and I looked at the cover for the next issue, and it's even worse.
Oh man.
And
it grosses me out in a really visceral way, and so I have a really hard time with it. I'm just going to be honest.
Totally with you, and I didn't need the body horror thing stuff at the very, very end. Trust me. However, it didn't take away from a really fun, terrific. It seems like each issue is going to be its own little singular adventure of this character who wears Iron Man, Doom, and looks like maybe Deathlock armor all mashed into one, sending them into different dimensions or times or places to...
As I flip back to the beginning, I was like, all right, I forgot about that weird dude.
Yeah, that was the impetus. And I love the classic the classic Hulk in the ripped up purple pants, and he looks like sort of a version of John Buscema's Hulk, which is to me the Hulk that exists in my head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not too dumb, not too smart. It's not at all related to what's going on in Hulk now. It's sort of totally in its own bubble. And I love when Thing and Hulk team up. I didn't realize Hulk was so much bigger than the Thing. I guess that's just the way Steve Scrooge.
I think it makes sense, though. I think that works. I really liked that Hulk kept making up nicknames for Thing. Crackface, Roadface. And the first time he said it, I was like, what does he say? Oh, Crackface. That's funny. Or Crackhead, I think.
The thing that I didn't love about this is I actually liked how competent Ben Grimm is in the situation where he's got tech from Reed. He's trying to solve the problem. He's trying to be strategic. He's trying to, and classic Hulk just says, okay, I'm tired of planning. I'm just going to jump in and beat everyone up and
Start
win.
smashing.
Which, I agree with the logic of the way Hulk works would work, but I felt like Ben just kept getting constantly undercut and didn't get a moment to like also be the competent hero that he could be.
But that's Ben's thing, isn't it?
I disagree. And here's why. In this case, he decides that he needs to be a stand-in for Reed. And so therefore he's trying to do the thing, and he's getting undermined by a character who just works with his base impulse and goes for it. And in the end, the only way that they're really successful is they just have to throw themselves at the thousands and thousands of demons streaming at them. And that was the thing that was ultimately successful. So the Hulk's instinct was correct. And until he submitted to his monster nature, then they were going to be in trouble. But mostly, I just like that they had to fight a fuck ton of demon things. And like at the end, there's like, it was so silly. The whole thing was silly. It was great. There's just a valley filled with corpses. And it was funny in the middle of it. I was like, they're killing those things. That doesn't happen a lot.
That's a great panel. I mean, this is full of tremendous art from Steve Scroach, who is, sort of he's not a huge... It's hard to say what he is. He's not a cult figure, but he's not a huge superstar.
He shows up every
he doesn't
5
work
years
enough
or so.
Yeah, he's almost like a cult superstar. And just wonderful pages. Page 18 when they're sitting on the pile of corpses, or my favorite, page 16 where they're jumping at us. Terrific. I love his thing. I love his Hulk. I liked his Reed. I thought the Reed bit was funny, where they were sitting around a table, the three of them, and his head was stretched far off into the distance, so he didn't even know there was trouble, didn't even know they got kidnapped, wasn't aware of anything because his head is off doing something else. Like, I thought this was all fun. I just enjoyed the sort of old classic Marvelness of it.
Just that, it's called Clobberin Time. So they got Hulk showed up. They delivered on the title. And no
Look
more.
Look at those donuts on page 21. How much do you want those donuts?
I believe those are bagels. I actually had thought about this. I think that, they're earlier...
the alleys?
Well, no, you may remember that...
they went to the Jewish deli.
Ben offered him rugula.
Yeah, you're right.
They have matzo ball soup, so those are going to have to be bagels.
Yeah, they're colored too dark, but yes, they're bagels.
They're too small to be bagels, quite honestly.
Well, although think of the scale of the people.
Exactly. I got there.
And I love that was a great comedic button where Reed finally retracts his neck and he comes back, and the Thing and the Hulk are all fucked up from their fighting.
He's been up there so long he needed a haircut and a shave.
So, no, Ryan, you're 100% right. And I turned the page to the cover for the next issue, and I was like, "Oh God, I'm going to vomit." But next issue is Wolverine.
It's something I personally struggle with. I don't wish anyone else to struggle with it as well, but the body horror of Thing, anytime his rocks are not like firmly in place.
When his rock falls off and it's like gooey underneath and it's sticking to, like, it's no good. No good.
Don't put words to it.
My family used to really tease me about how I've gotten better, but like I still get a little squeamish about certain things. And my dad's a surgeon, and the sometimes the dinner table talk strayed far afield of what would be considered appropriate or normal for other families. And so I just, every once in a while something hits me and I'm just like, I can't hang. Sorry. I still read the issue and I'll read the next one.
Forgive me for the diversion and like keep it short, but like if you're a surgeon, do you just not get creeped out by body stuff, or is there like...
I actually have a good and short answer to that. And it's I've joined my dad in surgery a couple of times.
You scrubbed in?
I didn't scrub in, actually. That was not permitted, but I was in the operating theater.
Gallery?
No, okay. I was standing next to him. I was like over his shoulder, but like I didn't scrub in because I wasn't going to touch anything. But basically,
did you have Junior Mints?
But I was eating a sandwich, as every coroner does in every procedural show. But no, he was like, someone had broken their wrist, right? They'd slipped on ice and fallen and broken their wrist, and the way it works is the entire person's body, except for their arm, which is tourniqueted, so it already looks like sort of a dead body part because there's no like blood flow, right? And there's literally a clock. There's a countdown clock of like, here's how long the tourniquet can safely stay on. So here's how long you have to do the surgery. Here's the arm. There's everything else is blanketed and covered, and then the anesthesiologist is at the person's head, making sure that they are doing okay. So all the surgeon's got to do is get in, get out, fix the problem before the countdown. So it really, it really is like kind of more of a video game than like dealing with an actual human person.
So it's sort of disconnected from the body, so you don't think of it that way. So then
I was fine and the thing I realized is whenever I had to do dissections in my biology classes in college or even high school, the thing that bothers me more is the smell of formaldehyde. And there's no formaldehyde when the person's alive. So the person's alive. And the thing that bothered me is at the very end of the surgery, just to make sure he'd done everything correctly, he said, okay, go ahead and take the tourniquet off. And then you see the arm come back to life because you see all the blood start flowing back in it.
My last thing. So does your dad get squidged out by anything?
Yeah, that was the original question.
Yeah.
You'd have to ask him. I don't know that I can answer that for him.
Okay. See, that's what I want to know. Like, I want to know if you're a person who cuts bodies open, but like, do you hate the sound of ketchup bottles getting squished? Like, that's what I want to know.
That sounds like a you thing.
No, I don't mind that. I was just thinking of a thing that makes a sound. I hate the sound of people chewing. I hate it. Or like that. Ugh.
I don't know of anything that like grosses him out just on an irrational level.
Spiders? Snakes? You don't have to really answer this. These are conceptual questions, really.
Yeah, I don't have a great answer. Sorry.
That's fine.
Clobberin Time #1. Ratings and Clobberin Time #1. Out of 5
2
stars.
broken wrists.
You're giving it a 2 out of 5. Wow.
No, I said 2 broken wrists. I was making a joke about the surgery. Go ahead, Josh.
I'm gonna say 4 1/4, which I feel is lowish, but I don't know if I want to go 4 1/2. I enjoyed the hell out of it.
I'm going 5, Ryan.
Wow, full 5.
Well, he said it would have been his pick, and we know
my
that.
Pick too.
But we know that if Connor gives something the pick, it's automatically a 5.
Right.
Not lately.
It's like a, what do you call it in grading? Curved.
The curve.
Curve grading.
Curve.
Yeah.
Grades on a curve. I'll go. It's just a solid straight down the middle 4.
All right. I feel like I need to move up to 4 1/2 then.
You do what you gotta do.
About a curve. I'm doing it. I'm saying that.
Patreon. Oh, and now we're all sticking with it, Ryan?
Sure. I mean, if I can get through the next issue.
I mean, it looks like it's a team up miniseries where every issue is a different character with the things, and this was the Hulk. Next month next whatever issue is the Wolverine. I was going to say, but that's from that cartoon, that X-Men cartoon, Pride of the X-Men. Anyway, Patreon.com/iFanboy is where you can vote. If you're every patron can vote to be put a book in the rundown, but that's also where you can support the show. Patreon.com/iFanboy is where all the patrons go and help keep the lights on, keep the bills paid. We appreciate that. iFanboy.threadless.com is where you can buy our t-shirts. iFanboy.com/support is where you can give a PayPal tip. iFanboy.com/Amazon is where you can shop and you can find our Booksplode books. And bookshop.org is our partner for supporting local bookstores, and you can find those links with the Booksplode books. And we thank everyone who does that, support the show. We are running along, so I'm flying through this part to get to the patron power, which is where we thank the $5 and higher patrons with the superpower. That's live on the show, and Ryan had one ready to go because it was distracting him earlier, so I'm very excited to see what it is. Ryan, take it away.
James White knows where all the fossils are. This is one very close to my heart, obviously. But James has a spider sense, but it's for fossils. Anytime he can sense spatially, like, and I'm talking like literally, like if he drove past the La Brea, if he lives in LA with Connor, he's Connor's roommate. If he drives past the La Brea tar pits, he feels the presence of thousands of fossils just over his shoulder.
Can he identify them singularly, or is just he knows there's a fossil, but he doesn't know what it is?
That's a good question. Does he have an incredible knowledge of and the anatomy of distinct extinct fossilized animals?
I think he could tell you that, like, oh, this is like a femur of a mammal, but I think until he puts eyes on it, he probably can't give you, like, he probably can't identify it down to the species level. But he knows wherever, like, if you took him out on a dig out west, he could find every T-Rex skull hiding under every Montana ranch that's out there.
Is his knowledge of the anatomies of these, is it from the power, or did he earn it through study?
I think it's more the latter. I think if you had this power, it would, for me, maybe because of who I am, it would drive you crazy to not be able to identify things on a basic level. So I think he's done a little bit of work to be able to say like, oh, I know the difference between a radius and an ulna, fibula and a tibula. Like, he knows that, but
right.
But really, it's just sort of, there are Spider-Man stories where like they dig into the spider sense and how like cacophonous it would be to actually have that power because of the danger that surrounds us all the time. Like, I think people don't realize how prevalent fossils are everywhere.
He only feels it when it's like direct about to hurt him danger, not just general danger.
There've been stories where like it's, he does have like a buzzing whatever. I'm not going to get into that right now, but like
shouldn't.
There are buildings, like there's buildings in DC that have marble from quarries that you can see fossils in the walls. So like he could be walking through a building and be feeling it because like there's a snail fossil embedded in the marble.
How fine-tuned and sensitive is it? Meaning that I'm sure that fossils exist that are nearly microscopic. So is he sensing that everywhere like sand, or is it sort of equivalent to human vision, let's say?
Not microscopic, but down to the level of, I would say there are fossils that are the size of a grain of sand, and that's about his lower limit. I spent a lot of time in undergrad sorting through foraminifera, which are a type of they're basically single-celled organisms that build a calcareous shell around themselves that are about the size of a grain of sand, and that's about his lower limit as well. But they come from the deep ocean, so like unless he's like, I think it's line of sight-ish. Like even if it's underground, if it's within the distance that he could see if the ground was not in between him and the fossil, he can feel that the fossil's there. So I don't know, 100 yards or so, depending on how good his eyesight is.
Well, all right then.
Thanks for being a patron, James White, patreon.com/iFanboy. That's where you can get your superpower live on the show at the $5 or higher level. Thanks to everyone who does so. And you could just 5 minutes ago just hear the email not happening. So we're going to skip that. But if you want to write us in, contact@ifanboy.com.
Can I mention?
Yep.
You hear the wrapper.
Are you having cookies?
I had a Choco Pie. We had Snack Talk, Snack Corner.
Oh, that's better than email.
Orion brand Choco Pie since 1974 with marshmallow filling. I texted Josh about the fact that I'd purchased an oatmeal cream pie, which was one of my preferred Tiny Deborah snacks from my childhood, and it was in my car and I lost it. There's a oatmeal cream pie somewhere in my car. I don't know where it is.
They're not small.
It's eventually, this was a double stacked one. It's eventually going to be a real problem for me, I imagine. So instead, I was out to lunch with a buddy this today, and we were getting pho at a Vietnamese place. I noticed they had a stack of Choco Pies, and I was like, "Can I buy one of those Choco Pies? Because I need a snack to talk about on the podcast I'm doing later today." And she said, "No, they're not for sale." And I said, "Okay." And then when I was checking out, she was like, "They had a stack of Choco Pies. They weren't for sale." And then when I went to pay up, she was like, "All right, here you go. You can have a Choco Pie." I think she probably thought I was going to give it to my son or someone close to me, but no, I ate it myself, and it was delicious. Orion Choco Pies.
Why would she assume you're not going to eat it?
I don't know.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions.
Snack Talk.
Why were they there if not available? Because they were not labeled for individual sale.
I don't know.
Were they there to like be given to folk?
Well, they were also. There was a big plate. This is like a little hole in the wall pho place in DC. Like if you guys are pho guys and you want to come to DC, I'll take you there. I'm talking to Josh and Connor. That offer does not extend to everyone listening.
That word needs more sounds to it. It's an exhalation more than it is a word.
You sound like Charlie when he's talking about like the spa and spaghetti in Always Sunny.
What is the spaghetti policy on this show?
It's not allowed. You could have pho or no pho. So I just finished a delicious bowl of pho. I was trying to pay up, and the woman was like, "Here you go." And she handed it to me. She didn't say just take one, but it was on a plate with apples. So it was just apples and Choco Pies.
Were the apples for sale?
I didn't ask because I was so thrown off by the Choco Pies not being for sale. Do you guys know what I'm talking about with the Choco Pies though? Like it's it's like it's almost an inverted s'more. It's like a soft, it's a marshmallow center, two very soft, crumbly graham crackery type almost cookies,
I see what
and then covered in a thin layer of chocolate.
It is a s'more. It's a s'more, basically.
Inverted.
Is it a brand?
Orion is the brand. I'm not just saying my name with an O on front. It's the concept.
Yeah, it's Orion. It's
so
basically a graham cracker cookie with Oreo dipped in, with marshmallow in the middle dipped in chocolate. It's, it's a s'more, basically.
Right.
I was, I think people who listen to a lot of podcasts, we often have experiences where like, man, I wish I could be a part of this conversation. And I gotta be honest, I missed being a part of Snack Talk. And so I wanted to bring a snack to the table. This is my snack.
I do apologize, but were they arranged in such a way that it looked like they were an offering, or was there just like...
So it's a hole in the wall pho place. And so like there's a bar, but there's no alcohol. So there's a bar you can sit at to eat your pho and have like a Vietnamese iced coffee or iced tea or whatever. And then there's like some tables, and even the tables are like community seating. And I was sitting at one of the tables, but when I went up to order at the bar, my buddy hadn't gotten there yet, but I had a meeting I had to get to. So I went ahead and ordered for both of us. And I saw the plate of apples and chocolate pies, and I figured you wouldn't want me to bring an apple to this discussion. So I asked, oh, and can I grab one of these chocolate pies? And she just said they're not for sale. And I said, oh, okay, darn. So I just gave up on the concept of having anything to talk about. And then I went back to the table and I ate my pho and papaya salad and my Vietnamese iced coffee. And then when I asked for the check, she brought me the check and a chocolate pie because I think she saw how disappointed I was.
Were the apples for sale?
I don't know. I'll go get pho tomorrow if that's what we have to do.
Is this like, you know how like certain Chinese food restaurants, depending on where you are, they'll give you oranges at the end of the meal or something, oranges and fortune cookies or something. So that's like a thing. Is it choco pie? Was there like, is there like a weird story where like the U.S. Army left choco pies and now they're huge in Vietnam?
Well, they're
never to be sold.
But I've never seen given away. I've never seen choco pies in this. I mean, I've been going to this place for years. This is my like Vietnamese spot in DC. Julie and I have been going there for a really long time. Like it was basically the first place we went to after we moved Julie into her apartment before I was even able to move here. And I don't remember ever seeing choco pies and apples. And the choco pies and apples were in a large bowl on the right end of the bar. And on the left end of the bar, I didn't go investigate, but I'm pretty sure there was a similar bowl of Charleston Chews. And I didn't investigate because I'm just like, even if they were Charleston Chews, I'm not bringing that to the show. I can bring the choco pie to the show. I'm not bringing Charleston Chew to the show. I'm just going to lay it out on the line. That's how I feel about it.
All right.
Well, so all right. There you go. I like this show when it was about comics, but sometimes this stuff has
I thought I was supposed to bring a snack. Enough for the whole class. I'll send you each a choco pie if I can go back and get pho for 2 more days in a row.
I feel as if that's not going to be worth the postage.
Contact at iFanboy.com is the email you could send in to get an email on the show. Normally we tried, it didn't work this time. Also for Media Explode, if you want to put that in the subject line. Let's talk about other shows and get out of here. I think we're going to make it. We're going to end up with 8 weeks in a row of special shows, Thursday shows. We had last week was the Shazam Fury of the Gods review. This past week, right behind this show, is our Booksplode review of Kingdom Come that Josh and I talked about. And then this coming week, I'm thinking it's going to happen. We're going to have the Batman, the Doom that Came to Gotham animated review. So all those, that'll cap our 8 weeks in a row of special shows. And then we turn it right around into April and start again. So, there you go. Ryan, what's going on with your show?
I do a show called Science Sort of, and if you want to check that out, you can check it out at sciencesortof.com or wherever you get your podcasts. I interviewed a woman, Danielle Claude. She's an Australian, and she wrote a book all about koalas. So if you want to learn more about that marsupial that is not technically a bear but has a lot of bear-like characteristics, go check out sciencesortof.com wherever you get your podcasts. It may not be out exactly by the time this episode drops, but it's coming soon, if not already available.
I think it would be very funny if your description ended at, I interviewed a woman. I interviewed a woman, guys.
Well, I've interviewed a lot of women over the years, and I
know.
I know you know, but do they know?
Well, I think they get the joke. They've been listening for a long time.
Fair enough.
That's the point here.
That's
my
show.
Is this when I talk?
Yep.
Do I talk? All right, here we go. You, dear listener. Yep, that checks out. You can find our library of over 1,200. I think it's closer to 1,300 shows.
Actually, I was looking yesterday at our feed on Apple Podcasts, and it said we had like 1,340 shows. I don't know where those extra shows came from.
Yeah, I've been slipping in some extra shows now and then. They're mostly eugenics based.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
It's called Eugenics and Bagels. It's a new show I do, but I have to put it back in the feed. I backdate them so that people don't find them. I'm sorry. You can find our library of over 1,300 shows and counting over at iFanboy.com, wherever it is you get podcasts. It's all available there because of the wonders of the internet, which I don't understand. Follow us at iFanboy Comics on Instagram and find out what the pick of the week is before the show comes out so you can be prepared. Sometimes you'll see the best of the week in panels. Very occasionally we do something else with that, but not really, if I'm being honest with you. Connor and I are individually on Instagram at CS Kilpatrick and J.A. Flanagan. Ryan is Ryan Haupt on Instagram and still is on Twitter with just Haupt for some reason.
I mean, I haven't deleted my account, but it's a garbage platform for garbage people, so.
Yeah. Well, it used to be all right.
It sure did.
That's where we still are.
Well, there's still plenty of people who are not garbage still using it, but for the most part. For the most part, it's not great. Subscribe to YouTube.
The garbage people have made it not worth being on.
There you go.
YouTube.com/iFanboys, where you can find our old video shows and as well as this show every week. You can listen to that there. But really, you can just find shows from 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 or so. You can see us young and healthy and vibrant.
Hail.
With glowing skin and
well met.
Shirts that fit well. Shorts. So many shorts. Why didn't anyone tell us not to wear the shorts?
You know who did tell us not to wear shorts?
Ron.
Friend of the show, Ben Simpson.
Oh, he did.
He told me very specifically, why are you wearing shorts? And I was angry with him at the time. But he makes a lot of sense now.
So many shorts. Yeah.
There's people who are listening and they like their shorts and they're fine with us and they don't know what we're talking about. And they think we're shorts assholes.
I have many pairs of shorts I love and wear all the time. Not on screen.
There you go. I think that's
sitting.
Helpful.
Just not a good idea.
Not on camera. Not on camera.
Not on camera.
Yeah, fair enough.
We have degrees in this, so what the hell? No one ever told us not to wear shorts.
We should have.
They didn't teach us how to light. They didn't teach us how to light, and they didn't teach us not about wearing shorts.
Actually, I may have told this before, and I'm so sorry. I have a very distinct memory of sitting. Connor and I went to TV school, and there was like a big studio inside, and they had me sit down so they could test the lighting.
Which they didn't teach us how to do.
And I sat there for a very long time until finally they came over the thing and they were like, "I'm sorry, we're actually having a lot of trouble white balancing on your legs." And I'm not making this up at all. And they went over to like the engineering and like people were twisting knobs, whatever, and they could not white balance my legs without them blowing out on video. That is 100% true.
Oh. That was good. That made the whole week worth it. And that might have been just for me, but it was funny. Oh, God.
Which is we're having some trouble here with your legs.
Anyway, thanks for listening and writing a review or leaving a star rating wherever you do listen, Apple Podcasts or Spotify or however you get your podcasts. If you can leave us a review, that'd be awesome. Whatever review you want. As always, don't judge the show by a single episode. Judge it by the aggregate. 18 years of shows.
I feel like you keep bringing that up when I'm on the show.
No.
Well, I think that what you're suffering for is you did 2 weeks in a row. You're fine. There's nothing.
What I'm suffering for is doing 2 weeks in a row?
No. It's like you're doing the 2 weeks in a row. The second week in a row, you're tired. You're not conditioned.
If you guys think that you're the sole reason I'm tired.
No, honestly, you are not the problem. I'm almost positive I am, because I'm like, Ryan, no, don't get off topic. And then I'm like, hey, by the way, here's this memory that's unrelated.
No, listen, I didn't say a goddamn thing while you told your white balance story. So let's
listen. You were eerily silent.
Yeah.
All right, that's this week's show. It was an interesting one. We learned a lot. We cried. We laughed.
We grow. We changed.
And there were things that happened that were unexpected.
All right, let's hug it out, you guys.
I'm Connor.
I'm Ryan.
We're so lucky we get to do this, aren't we?